on the phone award-winning journalist Trevor Aaronson, author of the recently released The Terror Factory, Inside the FBI's Manufactured War on Terrorism. Trevor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, Trevor, now this came out of a series of pieces you wrote for Mother Jones, your book did. And, you know, this is something that certainly during the Bush years and perhaps also early into the Obama administration, it was quite clear that we were hearing sort of like a series of stories about terror attacks that were thwarted that upon closer scrutiny seemed less than competent, I should say, I guess is really the best way to put that. I mean, the one that sticks out in my mind was I think it was a crew of folks down in Florida who were prepared to take over the U.S. government. They just needed boots and uniforms, if I remember that correctly.
That's right.
And apparently it's somewhat indicative of what the FBI has been doing. Just lay out what you have found in your reporting.
Right. So I'm glad you brought up the case in Florida, which was known as the Liberty City 7 case. And that's actually the case that first alerted me to what was happening. And it was really one of the first cases that the FBI used these sting tactics in a terrorism case. And in that case, I happened to be a reporter down in Miami, and I was there when they announced the charges, which were themselves on its face, on their face, very ridiculous, which was that the FBI accused 7 men who lived in Liberty City, which is a poor African-American and Haitian-American area of Miami, of plotting a ground war against the United States government. Obviously 7 guys can't effectively plot a ground war, yet through this plot, the FBI described how they met an al-Qaeda operative, and that al-Qaeda operative was going to help them bomb the Sears Tower and also the Miami office of the FBI. But on close inspection of that case, it was clear that it wasn't all that it seemed. They never had any weapons. All of the weapons would have been provided by the government. They never knew anyone from al-Qaeda. The al-Qaeda operative was actually a paid FBI informant. And they really never had any means or opportunity for committing their crime were it not for the FBI providing everything that they needed. And what also came out was that these men were pretty much idiots. One man, the leader, a man named Narcil Batiste, described how he had hoped to bomb the Sears Tower, and if it fell in such a way, it would hit Lake Michigan and cause a tsunami that would drown the city of Chicago. Obviously, that's patently ridiculous, but it's also indicative of many people who are caught in these sting operations. And so what my research tried to do was look at every terrorism prosecution that had come out of U.S. courts in the decade after 9/11 and try to figure out how many involved really dangerous people and how many involved people like the Liberty City 7 who, were it not for the FBI, would never have been able to commit their crimes. And what I found, I think, was pretty striking, which was that, in the decade after 9/11, there were a handful of cases involving truly dangerous people. Faiza Shahzad, for example, delivered a bomb to Times Square, or Najib al-Azazi tried to detonate bombs on the New York City subway system. Then you have the underwear bomber and the shoe bomber. But except for about 5 defendants, the rest of the cases involved people who were caught in sting operations that, were it not for the FBI, never would have been able to move forward in a terrorist plot. And in the decade after 9/11, 150 people were indicted and convicted who were like the Liberty City 7, who, were it not for the FBI, never could have committed their crimes. And for the most part, these were people on the fringes of Muslim communities, mentally ill, economically desperate, and easily manipulated by FBI informants or undercover agents.
Okay, so all right, let's back up a little bit here. I want to talk about the development of this I guess, MO towards rooting out potential terrorists. And you've written that you write that it is essentially emanated out of the FBI's move into sort of street crime fighting when it came to drugs.
That's right. I think everyone has seen that movie where, you have a scruffy-looking undercover FBI agent in a hotel room, and he's got a briefcase, and 2 guys come in, and they want to buy that briefcase because they believe it has cocaine inside, and they hand over the cash, and the FBI agent hands over the briefcase, and when the 2 men open it and find it empty, FBI agents storm in and arrest them for conspiracy to purchase cocaine or whatever the drug that was allegedly in the briefcase would have been. And this is what's called a no-dope bust, and it's been used for decades. And what we see in terrorism stings is an evolution of that tactic, which is that instead of the empty briefcase, it's an inert bomb. It's something that the defendant believes is going to detonate or explode upon his action, but when it doesn't, FBI agents storm in and make the arrest. The reason I'm critical of terrorism stings in a way that I'm not critical of drug stings is that in the United States, there are tons of drugs available for purchase and sale. I mean, I think no one would dispute that. And so when the FBI is providing the means and opportunity for someone to purchase drugs, they would be able to purchase drugs or sell drugs to someone else were it not for the FBI providing the opportunity. Terrorism stings are very different because there's never been a case where you have this kind of lone idiot who, for whatever reason, wants to commit an act of violence, but doesn't have the means, doesn't have the opportunity, doesn't have contact with terrorists, who turns a corner and there's an Al-Qaeda agent who says, hey, you want to commit an act of terrorism? I can provide the bomb. What's happening in these sting cases is the FBI is the only one providing the means and the opportunity for these cases. And they're really finding people who, are just incapable on their own of committing an act of terrorism. Many are mentally ill. Others are economically desperate. And they're easy targets, low-hanging fruit to manipulate in these terrorism sting operations, while at the same time, the FBI really isn't finding the truly dangerous people before they strike, like the Boston Marathon bombers, for example. Instead, they're finding these people who are kind of suckers, who are easily drawn into these terrorism sting operations. And that allows for the FBI a very convenient way of saying, hey, look at us, we're keeping you safe.
Right.
The truth is that there's a lot of money to be spent on counterterrorism and not many terrorists going around. And these terrorism sting operations are a way for the FBI in a bureaucratic way to say, look at us, measure our success. These are the number of arrests we've made, just like any law enforcement agency measures its success through arrests. But the problem is that the evidence in these cases clearly shows that were it not for the FBI providing the means and opportunity, these men would have never lifted beyond the fringes, the position of their fringes in communities, and never would have been capable of committing even minor crimes, let alone these grand act of terrorism involving weapons that even a sophisticated criminal organization would have difficulty obtaining.